Hello, everyone. I am Jennifer Joy Madden, and my guest with me today is Robin. She is from the Midwest of the United States, and she discovered the durable human through searching for information that led her to the post on babies, toddlers, and virtual autism. In older kids, a related syndrome is called electronic screen syndrome. And I'm really happy she discovered us. And she has now so graciously offered to talk about her story and what her life has been like in the last approximately almost a year. Is that right, Robin?
Yes, starting November 2021, and it is now the end of August 2020.
Okay, good. Can you tell us a little bit about your son?
My son Walter, he will be 2 next month in September. He is expecting a younger brother, also going to be born in September. So, he's just doing great. He's excited. Uh,
That's wonderful. And we're going to hear his story and your story today. Can you tell us first what caused you some concern?
So, and I think this might happen to a lot of parents. So the order that Walter's symptoms appeared in weren't in the order that I noticed them. So he did regress. He lost skills, but that's not what I noticed. What I noticed was the appearance of stimming behaviors. That's what I noticed first. And then that made the regressions become apparent to me. So when he was around 14 months old, I started noticing the classic hand flapping, the tiptoe walk. He would tilt his head to the side while doing the tiptoe walk and hand flapping and spinning around the room. And I knew what that looked like. It presented as autism. Not that I don't have any credentials, I'm not a medical professional, but I knew, from a layman's point of view, it looked like autism. And then that's when I realized he had started losing skills probably for the last couple months, and it just hadn't clicked to me until I saw the regression. And those skills that he had lost were waving, babbling. He had 5 or 6 words that he just wasn't really saying anymore. Didn't smile really much at all. Eye contact was nearly gone. And he quit caring when his dad came home from work. He used to get excited, and then it was like he didn't notice his dad had entered the room anymore. His vocalizations had kind of changed from babbling to more like moans and squeals. And the big one was he had stopped answering to his name, which I didn't notice, but I just thought it was a stubborn, maybe expressing independence, but that's not what it was. And then after that, I did notice some missing milestones that just never happened, specifically pointing and bringing us toys to show us. Those were big ones. I noticed he never gone.
And then finally, you realized that maybe something was out of order, different. What did you do at that point?
The first thing I did was, and I didn't feel like I even needed this confirmation, but I did the MChat online.
What is that?
The MChat, it is a screening for young toddlers. It doesn't diagnose autism, but it shows, you answer yes or no questions about your child, and it will give you a risk assessment for, how likely it is that they may have autism, and should they go to, something to bring to your doctor and have them look at. So I did that, and he scored, I think I had to click yes on every symptom except one or two. So he scored very high risk at that time. And then we took him to his pediatrician as soon as we could get in, which was, not even a week later. But at that same night that I realized I think my son has autism, something inside of me, I had realized he was a little bit more willing to be social and a little bit more himself on days where the TV wasn't on at all. So I did type in screen time plus toddler plus autism, and this is where I came across Lori Fromm's online body of work, and then also the collection of articles on Durable Human about virtual autism. So the next day we stopped screen time, even before we got to the doctor.
And the doctor, so what your instinct was go to the pediatrician, or where'd you go?
I took Walter to his pediatrician, who he's a young doctor, very with it and open to new information. And he did say, he went through the MChat with us, and he said, yes, I'm going to refer you to the Autism Center of St. Louis, try to get on this waiting list. But he was also intrigued and very supportive by the idea of screen removal. And he said, it can't hurt. Let's also try it. I mean, that's the beauty of this protocol. It can't hurt. So we did try that, and getting ahead of myself, but we did a couple more follow-ups with the doctor, and the doctor was amazed with the progress.
So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so right away, we saw the doctor again in 2 months after that. No, maybe 1 month, sorry, 1 month after that. And by then, Walter was looking at people in the eye contact, answering to very simple requests, coming to me for comfort when he was, shy around the doctor. He was just like a different kid, and the doctor was incredibly just astounding.
That's great. Tell us, if you wouldn't mind, you stop screens out of, suddenly, out of instinct, and then what happened in the days ahead?
Within the first week, his waving came back within a few days. And I have seen this with other parents when they talk about their experience. He all of a sudden became very clingy with me, which was out of the norm and very reassuring to me. Eye contact, wasn't where it should be, but it was definitely much more there than it was. And this was just the first week. And then by the end of the first week, babbling was starting to come back, more normal sounds that you would expect from a 14-month-old.
What did the screen removal look like? What did you do?
Well, Walter was, his show, it was a TV show, actually through YouTube, but we played it on the TV. It was called CoComelon, and it is infamous among parents of young children. It's like, it's parents use it as a tool to get a couple minutes to themselves to do the dishes, cook dinner, whatever, because it just entrances these kids. It's just a musical show with lots of fast cuts, maybe every 3 to 6 seconds it cuts. Bright colors, constant stimulation. And CoComelons was Walter's show, and he would watch that on the television, not very much compared to other stories I've seen about children with virtual autism, maybe between an an hour and a half and 2.5 hours a day, but for whatever reason, that was enough to get him. So we just stopped that. And luckily he was so young that he didn't realize I was the one who turned the TV on and off. So I didn't have to deal with the begging and pleading. He was just like, oh, I guess my show's not on. And then my husband and I also just even though I wouldn't consider us on our cell phones, smartphones excessively, we did put them away as well, our own.
And you didn't have the habit of having the TV on in the background or anything like that?
No, I did not. But that show, Cocoa Melons, was in it. That's what he watched every day. He would go through the series over and over again, and it really got to him, even though it wasn't, and there were days where it would be a little more than the time I described. Sometimes it would go up more, sometimes less, but 1.5 to 2.5 hours is a good estimate of what he was watching per day.
Was that during COVID time?
Yes, Walter was born September 2020. So this was throughout early and mid 2021 when Cocoa Melons started in our household, probably spring and summer of 2021 is when he started watching it. But he would have been about 6 months old when he started.
And what was your state of mind then?
At that time, I had recently come out of a depression and was eager to make up for lost time, and I thought I was doing everyone a favor. I would put that on and I would clean the house and make a nice dinner, and I thought Walter seemed happy. I thought I was being super mom. I thought I was doing everything. I wasn't, I found out later, but I was feeling great, and that's part of what hurts even more afterwards about this, the guilt you have for every parent, that has been through this expresses guilt. But I'm grateful we found out, but I feel sad, like I sacrificed something of Walter's for something of mine when that's not what I meant to do.
Well, thank you for being so honest about that. Did it take, was it a straight line for his improvement, for his change in his behavior, or were there fits and starts, would you say?
I would say with Walter, it would be rapid upswings with mild plateaus. It wasn't fully linear. It would start and stop, which would make sense because you can't, when he was recovering and progressing, it was so rapid, it couldn't be sustainable. So it was like his mind and body needed short breaks between the leaps and bounds that he was making. Time to, commit that rewiring to his brain, and he just needed rest between. So I wasn't concerned when he would seem to not necessarily regress, but because he didn't lose any new skills that he was learning, but fall back into old habits, maybe stim a little bit more, maybe more tantrums. And sometimes they coincided with teething or an illness. But he always came out of it, and a lot of times he would come out of it with a new skill suddenly.
Now, we understand from researchers that this is a two-part situation, and that is one, to remove the screens and electronic toys, and the other is to increase engagement and involvement and face-to-face contact and kind of full sensory living for the baby or toddler. So what did that half look like for you?
Right. So the screen removal was the easy part. The hard part was the constant high quality social interaction. And I mean, it wasn't hard because I knew I didn't have a choice and this is what I had to do for my son, but it took a lot of energy. So with Walter, you know, it had to start out slow because you have to remember they are a toddler and they can still get overstimulated like a neurotypical toddler. So what we did, and you know, you also still have to run your household. So I did involve him in a lot of chores with me. He thought that was really fun. We started really slow, actually. I would put him, and this wasn't even chores, but I would put him in the high chair facing me with a blank, boring wall behind me. So he had no choice. If he wanted to look at something, he would have to look at me and talk to him and tickle his fingers. And, you know, he really didn't like that at first, but then he eventually started getting excited for it. So we started really slow there.
Was that instinct, or did you have somebody guiding you with activities for him or things that you did?
Actually, I have a younger brother. He's a grown man now, but he was autistic, and that's something my mother did with him.
And you wrote in, I remember you really caught my eye with the comment about the M&Ms. What was that about?
That was also her idea. So I didn't, there's not much of a guide of what to do. So I decided I'm going to take everything he got a fail score on the MChat and every CDC milestone that he had met. And I'm like, I'm going to work on these individually. And so pointing is a big one. It was on both CDC and MChat. Walter wasn't doing, he couldn't follow a point, he wouldn't point. So I'm like, I'm going to teach him about pointing. And first I gave him some M&Ms, so he knew they were great. And that's a little chocolate candy here in the US with the candy, it's brightly colored. And I would point to the M&M with my finger touching it. I would set it on a table, the floor, anywhere he could see it. And I would say every time, look, look. And eventually he started learning at the end of my finger, when I pointed like that, something great was there. And I would pull my finger a little farther away, you know, start doing a few inches away. And it was really slow going. We take for granted nonverbal communication like pointing, but it took a while, but I could get my finger further and further away. And eventually he kind of realized when someone points, you try to look at and see what they're pointing at because it's something you want to see. And then I started filling a clear jar with M&Ms. So you could see that the jar was full of M&Ms, and I put it up high and I would point up at it and say, look, look, and he would look, and then I would give him an M&M out of it. Then one day I put the jar where I knew he would eventually find it, but he couldn't reach it. And I said nothing to see if he would try to get my attention. And he pointed at the jar. He pointed and I gave him an M&M. I don't think he ate dinner that day. He just ate a lot of M&Ms because we were so excited about the pointing. So and that's what we did. We chipped away at missing milestones and fails which I don't like that language, but that's the language of the MChat, fail. So we chipped away at those. Another one was that just to give you an insight into the process of working through these, one was blocks. CDC and World Health Organization, for children Walter's age, he was supposed to be able to stack 2 blocks together and make a tower. He absolutely couldn't do that. He couldn't understand that. So I started out stacking blocks myself in front of him, and then I would celebrate for myself really loud, clapping, cheering, drumming on the table every time I did that. And it did get his attention. He was interested. And then eventually that evolved into he would help me celebrate when I stacked 2 blocks. He would clap, he would drum on the table. And I tried for months, you know, I think February, he still wasn't stacking blocks, and we've been working on it since November, December. So, and I think this was info from Lori. I took his hand with a block in it and kind of guided it and made him stack the block, and then celebrated and acted like, oh, Walter, you did it. And he really was excited by that I was celebrating for him. And then we did that for less than a week, and then it clicked with him that he could stack the blocks himself. So when we would get stuck on a milestone that we were trying to work on, I did find out if you help them cheat a little bit, you know, use your hand and make them think they did it, you know, guide their hand. For whatever reason, sometimes, you know, they're just very literal kids. They really, I can't explain it, but that really helped him and made it click for him. So now he still wants me to clap for him when he stacks blocks, even though he can stack them 20 high now.
Wow, beautiful. And he's not quite 2, so that's a lot of blocks to stack.
Yeah.
Curious to know how you supported yourself. That shows an incredible amount of patience. And I'm wondering, how did you keep yourself going?
Well, one thing was that since the progress started so rapidly, it was kind of instant gratification for me. So it was very inspiring. And I also had this idea that this is my one shot. I don't have another option. I do have to do this. So that kept me going. But as far as like self-care and just energy, and I had become pregnant actually less than a month into the screen removal. So I was, you know, exhausted from that too. And my husband was working nights and days at that time. It's very hazy. It almost reminds me of the newborn days. Like I can't even fully remember, but I wrote down a couple things here. You know, I would he really enjoyed bath time. So I would do a lot of baths because it would be a spot where he would be contained, you know, just water, not even soap, just let him play in the water. And I would sit in the bathroom with him and pay the bills while he did that, or whatever I had to do. And I had to let a lot of things go also. It was just not feasible to keep a spotless house or even a clean house during this. I skipped a lot of showers. I got some dry shampoo. I never used that before, but it's pretty great. I recommend that. But knowing it was temporary helped me get through it. So, you know, it was a lot of sacrifices. And that's just the nature of it. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, unfortunately, but it's temporary, and the payoff is incredibly worth it. Yeah, I think I don't know. He's actually at this point doing so well, and I'm still in the habit of the constant intense social interaction. Not as much, but now I'm trying to learn how to separate myself even a little more. So you know, I'm still learning, but now that he doesn't need that from me anymore, what I'm saying is, no, I wasn't really able to take care of myself as good as I could have if I hadn't been doing that. And I think that's just how it is. Just a year of sacrifice.
And how is your your household lifestyle now and your kind of mindset as you prepare for the arrival of the next child?
Going forward, I feel just very humbled by my experience, but also empowered. What I witnessed to me was a miracle. It's like I saw a miracle. And this protocol has changed my parenting from passive, I would say, though I didn't know it at the time, but it was too passive and maybe even mediocre to just energized and involved within reason. Um, it's been an honor to see Walter turn into such a happy, social, silly, caring little boy. And so I'm excited to see his progression. I'm excited to be fully present with my next child from the beginning. And it really has been the greatest blessing in disguise. I mean, with screens just not being an option, it really frees you from that crutch. It's great. I mean, we go outside. We have some chickens. I take Walter out in the mornings with me and I feed the chickens and he plays with his little cars in the driveway. And it's I just catch so many more little moments that I would have if we had so many screens involved. It's like it's just the biggest blessing to be so present. And for Walter to be present too.
So you feel strong enough to keep going forward?
Yeah, I feel like after that, with those screens not being an option, and in fact, the screens almost made it feel like instead of living and enjoying the day, it felt like I was just getting through the day, like this was a balm or a drug or a time eater just to whittle away the day. And now I feel so empowered now that I've done it without screens and I know I can do it. It, it I feel like endless possibilities. I don't feel dread at the thought of a newborn and a 2-year-old at the same time. I feel, it will be hard, but I'm just excited now. That's it.
Wonderful. And I guess as we wrap up here, do you have any final words for parents of babies and toddlers?
Yes, families need to know that even though heavy screen use is normalized in our society, that doesn't mean it's safe. Lead paint was once called safe. Asbestos was called safe. Cars didn't have seatbelts. And that doesn't mean it was okay. This heavy screen use in society is fairly recent. So its effects on the human mind, on our children, it hasn't really been fully realized yet. And, just because you aren't being warned explicitly at every doctor's appointment or by, parents that came before you, other parents, that doesn't mean the danger isn't there. We're on the cusp of this new era where technology is just a constant part of our lives. And I understand, like, my cell phone is my grocery list, it's my newspaper, it's everything. So but I think the danger hasn't been fully realized on, by society at large or demonstrated by, full on scientific studies yet and that are available to the public. So that's my message. Just because no one's telling you it's dangerous doesn't mean it isn't.
And I just wanted to remind everybody, and I always have to remind myself, is the World Health Organization, the American Academy of Pediatrics have guidelines. Sometimes people tune out when they hear the word guidelines. Basically, it says that people under age 2 should experience the world normally without technology. I always like to say the kids need to know their own operating systems before you introduce other operating systems. They need to learn how to use their hands, how to listen, how to study someone's mouth and eyes to figure out how to speak. The research is showing that screens can't teach that very well. We are seeing a lot of speech lagging going on with kids, and that shows like CoComelon have been shown to be extremely overstimulating. And that makes your life more difficult too, to try to separate the child from the screen, let alone what's happening in the baby's brain.
I asked my doctor at Walter's 4-month checkup, or Walter and I have the same doctor. And I said, he watches this show. It's not very much, but it says here I shouldn't do that. Should I stop? I did ask the doctor, and he said, keep it under 2 hours a day. And that was a doctor, the same doctor that was amazed at his recovery. But
well, I guess that shows you, Robin, I'm going to interrupt for a second. The guidelines are that under age 2, there should be 0 TV watching for kids, and only over age 2 do we get anywhere near 1. Public health authorities say definitely not 2 hours. You have to be a bit of a smart renegade here, because now you actually could go to the WHO and the AAP guidelines and show this: under 18 months, 0 or less than an hour, and only, FaceTime with grandma. And so you have to be a leader. Have you felt yourself becoming more of a leader, Robin?
Yes, definitely. And it's like what I said, that I want families to know. You aren't going to be warned that this is dangerous. In fact, you're going to be told it's normal and it's okay to let your children consume screens every day, all the time. And you just need to know, follow your instinct. It's not okay. You're going to be told it's okay, but it is not okay.
I thank you very much for your time and your courage to come forward and communicate.
Thank you, and same to you. I don't know if Walter would be where he was if it wasn't for the Durable Human blog. All that information that you had right there for me, I devoured it and really took it to heart. And now my son is the happiest little boy I've ever met.
Oh, that's really wonderful. I wanted to just say one thing about the blog post on virtual autism, is that I am a reporter, I'm a journalist, and I am only reporting the news. I'm reporting facts from experts and advice from researchers. And so I wanted to just say that. I didn't make it up. Blogs sometimes imply that it's my opinion or that kind of thing, and it's not my opinion, and you're going to see that if you go to the website. So yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Sorry, I do want to say that because it was all, real verified articles from prestigious and validated professionals, that really won me over too, because the credentials were all there. It was, I didn't feel like it was a homeopathic person just making things up. That really won me over, all that info.
Did you say your husband was also looking at the data and that sort of thing, and it helped him understand what was going on?
Yes, I don't think I would have got him on my side without all the concise data that you had listed. Before we did this talk, I asked him, what what did I say to you that really helped? And it was a statistic that I did get off the Durable Human blog that you pulled from the CDC. Um, in 1975, 1 in 5,000 children were diagnosed with autism. And then in 2018, 1 in 44. And that really spoke to him. Because what is the difference between 1975 and now? Screens. Yeah, I don't think I would have got him on my side without that information.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The numbers speak for themselves. And so do all those researchers. I was really interesting. It was interested to find them all over the world, Iran, Japan, starting pretty much in Romania and France. And so now a number of researchers, as you'll see, are in the United States. And so it's wonderful that they're coming together, and some of them are taking a while to come out with their data because they want to have verifiable data. And so that's why it's a little bit slow. And but I'm so glad to know people like you are charging ahead, and you're going, as you said at the very beginning, it can't hurt. It cannot hurt to take the screens away from the baby.
And I am a very private person, but I don't feel that I would be being a good human being to keep this to myself. I am, you know, that's why I agreed to this interview and any subsequent anything. It would be wrong to keep this to myself. His recovery to me, I would divide it into 2 parts. The first part was just getting him back into being social and wanting to be a part of the family and the desire for that, which is what we talked about. But the other part was his speech delay. He even in, we'll say, April, after we started no screens in November of the previous year, his receptive language was just nothing, and he didn't say anything. So even though he really wanted to be social, he could not talk or comprehend language. So we started speech therapy in April, and just a couple days ago he graduated. He is his communicative language, words he speaks, is within the threshold of normal for a 2-year-old, and his receptive language is considered advanced now, the words he understands. I don't know. We continued with it because Walter really enjoyed it, but it almost, with the 2 parts of it, receptive and then communicative, both just took off like rockets at seemingly random points. So I don't know that if it would have done that without the therapy or not, but regardless, he is in every developmental category now. He's either at normal levels or advanced now. That's how I really pinpointed maybe when the regressions kind of started, because I did have photos of him being a normal, laughing, smiling, interactive baby, smiling for the camera even, seeking out tickles from dad, that kind of thing. And then I could see, like, probably around the end of October, and my camera roll on my phone, I noticed there were no more smiles, no more eye contact, just that glazed, flat, neutral, almost robotic look that sometimes these kids get about them. You know, no, expressionless. So that's how I pinpointed the when the regression really started taking hold. Because like I said, I didn't notice the regression, I noticed the appearance of stimming symptoms. Yeah, and the photos of him now, he's smiling for the camera, he's excited, just looks like a regular involved happy toddler.